House Hightower is one of the biggest names in House of the Dragon, and they are nowhere to be found in Game of Thrones, not officially anyway. If you've watched House of the Dragon, you already know this isn't some minor family that just fades out. We are talking about one of the oldest, richest, most powerful houses in Westeros. So before we get into Jon Snow and Daenerys, let's rewind and run through the Hightower story, the highlights at least, how they rose, how they fell, and why HBO's original show barely mentions them. Their sigil, a white stone watchtower with fire on top. Their seat, the High Tower in Old Town. Their motto, we light the way. And yes, they've got a Valyrian steel sword, Vigilance, the one Ormund Hightower carries during the dance. Having Valyrian steel puts you in rare company in Westeros. The Hightowers were never quite in the same tier as the Starks, Lannisters, or Tyrells, and the Tyrell connection is exactly why their influence eventually faded, but for a long stretch they punched way above their weight. The High Tower itself is the tallest structure in the Seven Kingdoms, taller than the Wall. People in Old Town tell time by its shadow, and some swear you can see the wall from the top. This is a house that's always leaned toward trade over war, and toward the faith of the Seven over conquest. You'll notice Alicent wearing a 7-pointed star necklace throughout House of the Dragon. That isn't just costuming, it's the whole family philosophy. When Rhaenyra tries to take the throne, the High Septon refuses to anoint her.
But I still wish at least to be anointed. By you.
Cannot be done.
Purely because the faith loyalists run to the Hightowers instead. Religion and this family are basically fused together. They backed the faith early and let Old Town Starry Sept get built, which was the actual centre of the faith for 1,000 years before King's Landing, and before the Great Sept even existed. That's the blueprint for the whole family going forward. Trade over war, faith over conquest, influence from the shadows. A few legendary Hightowers worth knowing. King Uthor supposedly had Bran the Builder. Yes, that Bran the Builder, founder of Stark, designed the first full stone version of the tower. His son, Perimor the Twisted, gathered the scholars who eventually founded the Citadel, and Lyman Hightower, the Sea Lion, beat back an Ironborn invasion and married his daughter into House Gardener, which is how Old Town ended up under Highgarden's rule in the first place. There's a lot of history fast, so here's the part that actually matters. When Aegon the Conqueror showed up to unify Westeros, Lord Manfred Hightower didn't fight him. He opened the gates of Old Town. That decision saved the city from being burned, and it got the High Septon to reluctantly anoint Aegon, handing his conquest religious legitimacy it wouldn't have had otherwise. And here's the Tyrell connection. When Aegon conquered the Reach, its ruling family, the Gardeners, had been wiped out. Aegon needed someone new to rule the region, and he skipped right over the wealthy, powerful Hightowers to install the Tyrells, who'd been nothing more than stewards to the Gardeners. Why? Because handling power to an already mighty house like the Hightowers risked resentment and rebellion. The Tyrells, by contrast, owed everything to Aegon. They had zero built-in status, so their loyalty was guaranteed. Smart move, but it meant the Hightowers, despite all their wealth and history, never actually ruled the Reach or Highgarden. They were just extremely influential vassals, which honestly makes their rise even more impressive. It's probably also exactly why they've got such a chip on their shoulder in House of the Dragon. 25 years after the conquest, Cersei Hightower married Maegor the Cruel, the third Targaryen king, the real link between this family and the Iron Throne, even though her reign as queen only lasted 3 years. Then things go quiet for about 75 years until Otto Hightower becomes Hand of the King to Jaehaerys Targaryen. Otto was brilliant, proud, blunt and ambitious, the kind of guy plenty of people resented but couldn't ignore. His biggest rival, Prince Daemon Targaryen, exactly as we see in House of the Dragon Season 1. Otto served as hand under both Jaehaerys and Viserys. When Queen Aemma died in childbirth, Otto sent his own daughter Alicent to comfort the grieving king, and the two eventually married, having several children who would go on to spark the Dance of the Dragons. Before all that, though, Alicent and Rhaenyra were genuinely close friends, long before politics tore them apart. Otto basically ran the kingdom for years as hand, and he's often painted as the mastermind behind the dance, pulling strings so his Hightower bloodline could take the throne.
Realm will not accept her, and to secure her claim, she'll have to put your children to the sword. She'll have no choice.
But here's the twist people forget. Otto originally backed Rhaenyra's claim, not out of loyalty, but because he was terrified Daemon could become a second Maegor the Cruel if he ever got the crown. It's only once Alicent has sons of her own that Otto flips completely and starts pushing for his grandson Aegon instead. His constant scheming eventually gets him fired, so he heads back to Old Town and builds the Green faction from there. Otto gets reinstated right before Viserys dies, and it's his deathbed maneuvering that ultimately puts Aegon on the throne over Rhaenyra. A single act that ignites the entire war. He's eventually executed by Rhaenyra and Daemon once the Blacks retake King's Landing.
I did my best.
While Otto and Alicent are playing politics in King's Landing, the actual head of House Hightower during the war is Otto's nephew, Ormund, the guy leading the richest armies for the Greens and the one constantly sniffing his little vials of something in the show. Quick warning here, if you don't want show spoilers, pause and come back. At the Battle of Honeywine, Ormund's army gets pinned between two hostile forces and looks finished. Until his squire, Prince Daeron Targaryen, was basically grown up as Ormund's protege, shows up on his dragon Tessarion and flips the entire battle. Ormund himself doesn't survive the war. He dies at the First Battle of Tumbleton, though his army still wins that fight thanks to a major last-minute betrayal on the black side to do with Ulf the White and Hugh the Hammer. Ormund's 15-year-old son Lionel inherits the title, and then in one of the wildest footnotes in the whole family history, takes his own stepmother, Sam Tarly, as his lover. The faith was not thrilled. Sam goes on to found the Bank of Old Town, and while most great houses come out of the war devastated, the Hightowers end up richer than ever. The war they arguably started ends up bankrupting everyone else and padding their own coffers, pretty much the perfect crime. Now, the century between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, the part the show never touches on, has some genuinely great characters buried in it. Otto Hightower might be the most quietly legendary of the bunch. He is Lord Commander of the King's Guard under the Mad King, and years later, Jaime Lannister ranks him alongside Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy, as proof of how far the King's Guard has fallen since. Gerald's there when Aerys burns Rickard and Brandon Stark alive, and he is the one who tells a horrified young Jaime, "You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him." He dies at the Tower of Joy, fighting alongside Arthur Dayne against Ned Stark and Howland Reed. Yes, in the scene where we learn the truth about Jon Snow's parentage. So, technically, there is a Hightower in Game of Thrones. He's on screen for about 30 seconds and you'd never know it. Alicent Hightower runs the family during the main book timeline. He hasn't left the top of the tower in over a decade and rules the city from up there. He even turns down a marriage offer between one of his daughters and Tyrion Lannister, considering it beneath his family. Another daughter, Aelary, marries Mace Tyrell of Highgarden, which matters a lot because Aelary is the mother of Margaery Tyrell. That means every major Tyrell character across all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones is half Hightower. The name just never comes up. So why does the show barely touch this family? Old Town itself barely appears. We get the Citadel where Sam trains to be a maester, but almost nothing of the city or the family ruling it. There are a couple of distant shots of the tower and one line where a ship's captain mentions Leighton and the Mad Maester locked away up there, but that's it. Sam's whole Citadel arc is heavily trimmed for TV. In the books is longer and far more tangled up in Old Town's actual politics, but the show compresses it into a small personal arc, leaving no real door open for Leighton or any other Hightower to show up. There's also an entire Euron Greyjoy invasion of the Reed storyline in the books that never makes it to screen. Partly because show Euron is such a different character from book Euron, and that plot would have forced the Hightowers into the main storyline in the later seasons. So the Hightowers aren't erased from Game of Thrones, they're just working in the background well past their peak power from House of the Dragon. It's genuinely great that non-book readers finally get to see how compelling this family is. Rise, fall, and quiet stagnation. One of the most underrated houses in the whole story. Make sure to subscribe and like, and also comment below which house you'd like me to do a video on next.